From his 1977 self-titled debut album, that was Dean Friedman with Woman of Mine, right here on the Vintage Rock and Pop Shop. Dean is best known, especially in this part of the country, for another single from that album, which no doubt we'll be chatting about a little later on. But he does have a fine new release called 12 Songs, and some upcoming shows in our area. Saturday, March 10th at the Rockland Center for the Arts in West Nyack, New York, and Friday, March 23rd at Tim McClune's Supper Club in Asbury Park, New Jersey. Dean Friedman, welcome to the show.
Why, thanks for having me. I'm pleased to be here.
You know, I'd like to take you back to the very first song you wrote, and as I understand it, you were just a young kid, and you wrote a love song to a teacher that you had a crush on, and it inadvertently started your music career.
It's true, and indeed I did. I was in fourth grade. I had just gotten my first guitar. I paid for it with a bag full of quarters that I'd earned on a newspaper route. I dumped the quarters on the counter of Manny's Music in New York City, bought my first guitar, learned 4 chords, started playing some Beatle tunes and some Monkey tunes, and wrote my first song. It was called I'd Love to Take a Swim with You in the Summertime. Actually, I'd love to take a swim with you in the summertime. Oh, yeah. Of course, I sang it about an octave higher at the time. And, yeah, I had a crush on my fourth grade teacher and Ridge Ranch School in Paramus. And she actually played a tape of it for her brother, who was a lawyer in the music industry. And he played it for some publishing company. They offered me a contract, and I actually had a signing ceremony over milk and cookies when I was 9. Practiced my signature for a couple of days.
Right.
The publishing company promptly thereafter went bankrupt, which probably should have given me some warning in terms of foreshadowing my future engagement with the music industry.
Well, I guess there was good news and bad news there. The bad news would be that I'm going to assume that at 9 years old you did not take a swim with the fourth grade teacher.
Oh, not at all.
Okay.
It was aspirational.
Right. I think we can all relate to that. I didn't write a song about it, but that's what sets you apart, I guess. And in 1977, you had a big hit record. I'm saying this as if you don't know this. Of course you do. Ariel, and I'll tell you the story that you've probably heard from many, many people who were growing up and living in Paramus at the time.
Yeah.
And I was one of them. So It was one of those songs where people in Paramus were running around to other people, grabbing them and saying, "There's a song on the radio that mentions Paramus Park." Now, I guess the reason for this is because New York City is lousy with references in songs. I mean, everywhere you turn, there's references to the A train, you name it. And New Jersey gets short shrift. I would assume that the folks in Hackensack, when Moving Out by Billy Joel came out, they must have been running around freaking out that Hackensack was mentioned in a song.
I would think so.
Yeah. So my question is, was that story in the song true?
Well, I would say that the details in the song are all true. But the reality is that the girl Ariel in the song was sort of a composite of all these girls grew up in the suburbs that had a crush on growing up as adolescents starting out, and I sort of combined them into one idealized pot-smoking Jewish girl in a peasant blouse who lived deep in the bosom of suburbia. But I actually wound up meeting her later in Riverside Park and married her, although her name is Allison, and we've been married now going on 38 years. And
Elvis Costello had already cornered the market on that name.
That's true. Yeah, it's hard to compete with that, so I let it be.
Out of curiosity, whereabouts in Paramus did you live as a young boy?
I grew up on Gordon Drive.
Okay.
And, I, for years, just thought the whole world looked like Paramus, New Jersey, and had shopping malls. And I remember when Lady Bird Johnson flew over Paramus in a helicopter when we won the Keep America Beautiful contest. I don't know if you recall that, but it was a great place to grow up. I was always proud of coming from Paramus and pleased that I was able to put it on a chart record. Although I have to say that when the record first came out, the record company called me in and said, "Dean, you have to get your friends to stop calling the radio stations. They're getting annoyed with all these calls." from your friends? And I said, I promise my friends aren't doing that. And that's when they gradually, it dawned on them that they had a real hit record on their hands.
Unfortunately, the waterfall in Paramus Park that you reference in the song is no longer there.
I know. Well, it's become a historical document
Yes.
of postcards from another era. So I guess for people that are still looking for that waterfall, you'll have to refer to Ariel. Although, curiously enough, most people, especially in the UK where I tour very often, they imagine that the waterfall in Paramus Park is sort of an idyllic cascading feature in an outdoor park,
Right.
which in fact it's not. It was an indoor waterfall in a shopping mall. But the love story is just the same.
Tears on my pillow and Ave Maria.
We're talking to singer-songwriter Dean Friedman today on the Vintage Rock and Pop Shop. He has 2 shows coming up, Saturday, March 10th at the Rockland Center for the Arts in West Nyack, New York, and Friday, March 23rd at Tim McClune's Supper Club in Asbury Park, New Jersey. You know, it's funny that you mentioned the UK before, because listeners might not know that while Ariel was a big hit in the U.S., in the U.K., not so much, but you had subsequent songs which became big hits over there.
I did indeed. Ariel and Woman of Mine off the first album made some noise on the charts in the UK, but it wasn't until my second album came out, Well Said the Rocking Chair, that I had a number of chart-topping hits there, and sort of launched me into that media stew.
Right.
And so I have a very enthusiastic, loyal audience on the other side of the pond as opposed to the other side of the Hudson.
Right.
So I've been touring there ever since. A little bit of a commute, but
Sure.
they're a very appreciative audience.
Well, you could probably get there quicker than you could going from Jersey to Manhattan, with the
At
way
certain
traffic
times of
is.
day,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
definitely true.
This year marks the 40th anniversary of that second album you just mentioned, Well Said the Rocking Chair. Can you believe that, 40 years?
It is a curious phenomenon that time flies, and at the same time, it's kind of gratifying that the songs seem to have stood the test of time.
Well, I think one of the reasons for that is because as a songwriter, you're known for your attention to detail, and your songs are for the most part story songs, and they're very cinematic. You know, they have kind of a you are there in the movie quality to them.
Well, you know what? The songwriters that I grew up really admiring were, in particular, singer-songwriters like Joni Mitchell, Paul Simon, who conjured up very vivid imagery as they relayed the lyric. And it really allows a listener to be part of the song. You sort of invite them into the song so that they become sort of co-conspirators.
Right. I want to stay on that second album and talk about and play a song that I remember hearing on the radio in 1978, the Deli Song. What can you tell us about that song?
It's sort of a meet-cute first date that winds up in eating corned beef sandwiches in a deli at 3 o'clock in the morning in Manhattan. And I did see it sort of as a short film, a short story,
Right.
Set to music, including all the sound effects. In fact, I went with a sound technician and a portable tape recorder. We spent a whole day in New York visiting all the delicatessens, the 2nd Avenue Deli, Wolf's Delicatessen,
Right.
57th Street Deli. And in each deli, we got some ambient sound effects and waiters calling out orders and the clinking of glasses and utensils. And, of course, felt compelled to order something in each deli as we made some sound recordings. So it was quite a delicious field recording outing. And it really does add that flavor and spice to the soundtrack of the Deli Song.
We're speaking again to Dean Friedman, and let me give those dates one more time. Playing at Asbury Park, March 23rd, Friday, Tim McClune's Supper Club, and we also mentioned March 10th at the Rockland Center for the Arts. And where would people go to find out more information about you than we're covering here. I mean, there are all sorts of topics, and you've written books, you've done music for movies and TV and things like that. Where can people go to find all that information out?
Well, funny you should ask. I would invite any of your listeners interested in hearing more of what I've been up to, musically and otherwise, to just come visit my website. It's deanfriedman.com. Took me weeks to come up with that URL. Yeah. Drop me a line and can add you to the newsletter, keep you updated about gigs in the area and new recording projects and all sorts of goings on. I also have a Facebook page, Dean Friedman Music, and a YouTube channel and all that fine social media stuff. And I try to keep in touch with folks, and I appreciate that two-way conversation. Just a way to mention, just to add to the two dates that you did, yep. Rockland and West Nyack on the 10th of March, then the 23rd, Asbury Park, Tim McCoon's. I was just invited to open up for Richie Fury of Buffalo, Springfield, and Poco.
Oh, wow.
At a venue called At the Tabernacle in Tabor, New Jersey. That's March 17th. Also, all these gigs and tickets or links are on my website, deanfriedman.com, and I hope your listeners will drop a line and come to some of these shows.
And, of course, they can get your new album on there. It's called 12 Songs. I love this album. I want to go out with a song from the new album. I've listened to it several times.
Thank you.
And I'll tell you, I'm the sort of person, like, I hone in on specific songs, and then I just listen to them over and over and over again. You have several on this new record, but I think the one I want to play for our listeners today is the one that sticks out the most for me. And I think it's among maybe the best songs you've ever done. And it's Then You.
Well, you know what? It's a song that I wrote when I was on my own for a couple of days. My wife went to visit some relatives.
Right.
And, at first it's really liberating to have the house to yourself, and you can make a lot of noise. You can stay up late and play piano.
Right.
But, then I really was missing her. And I was getting sort of depressed and feeling blue. That's one of the amazing, magical things about music. When you're feeling down, music can lift you up. And that's where that song came from, out of, missing her and conjuring up what it would be like if she walked in the door.
Dean, I want to thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us today. It's been fun hearing some of the stories behind these songs and the new songs, too. Thank you so much, and have a great rest of your day.
Well, thanks for listening, and you too. Have a good one.
I don't know how anybody does it.